We welcome Ashley Hopkins and Sarah Vandenbelt to the Cash Rich Exit podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Hi, how are you?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so often we have one guest, but today we have a small panel because, well, it's a business story and business that's interrelated. And what a great way. Hey, Self-Made Nation, isn't it nice to hear more than a couple of voices at a time? Makes things interesting, right?
Yeah.
So, why don't we start with Ashley? Like, let's start by talking about how you got into the field that you're in, which we're talking about real estate. So, Ashley, like your a little bit of your journey to how you got to be the CEO of Paradigm Commercial Group.
Yeah, so it's funny. We were trying to, I, it's a long and sort of winding sort of story. I think the biggest thing to point out is that it wasn't planned. This just sort of happened. I think that's a lot of people's
Mhm.
experiences in industry as well too. But I mean, if we're high leveling in here, I came back to Ottawa having no experience or even understanding what this industry was. Uh, and took on a 3 month administrative role, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do next with my life. Uh, I ended up the owner of Paradigm at the time was like, well, you know what? You have a skill set. Do you want to learn? I'll teach you. And that's something you don't pass up when there's a leader in industry offering you that. So why not give it a shot? And I think that's kind of what a theme you'll probably hear through a lot of this. Let's see how this goes. And yeah, it just slowly went from an administrator to a PM to investments as she taught me different angles of the industry and introduced me to different areas that I didn't even realize were part of it. And then eventually she started talking about retirement. So we moved into, I moved into the VP role, and then we worked on a buyout option when she was really ready to move on to her next phase of life. Um, and yeah, it's sort of been like a winding path that I don't really think I knew I was going to take. But meeting different people in the industry, like especially like Sarah, and just getting to know all of these folks and learning that there's just so much more to this industry than people even understand.
Yeah.
It was kind of a no-brainer along the way, right? Like I think, not to waffle on here, but I think like people sometimes think that property management is just collecting rents and doing landscaping, but it's not. Like you, one day you're learning about building systems or emergency preparedness, but then you're dealing with clients and their businesses and tenants and figuring out how to help them through their struggles, or leasing and legal work and policy work, and there's all community building and engagement, building finance strategy. There's so many different avenues that someone could go down in this industry. So for people with brains like ours, where you're just constantly trying to be engaged, no brainer.
Yeah, no brainer for the very active brain, right? Well, Sarah, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to be in the position you're in, which is, first of all, like in a partnership of sorts, which we'll get to with Ashley. But your area of expertise in real estate is a complement to what Ashley's just talked about. So.
Yeah, so my real estate expertise, I'm using air quotes because I just saying that about myself. So I'm on the brokerage side of the business. So I'm a real estate broker. So I'm the lowly realtor that does, the lease and sales transactions side
We
of the business.
never downgrade what we're doing.
Let's be honest, I mean, realtors and real estate agents do kind of, there is a stigma attached to it. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, on the commercial side, I think it is a little bit of a different mindset, but we have to work extra hard to show our value. I digress. My background, I was really fortunate actually to grow up in a family that was involved in commercial real estate. So growing up, my family owned and managed and did some third party management specific to commercial. So for those like office, retail, industrial assets.
Mhm.
So kind of exactly in the world that Ashley's in that, I didn't know Christmas Day, birthdays, holidays, my dad would get flood and fire calls. And so it was just like part of our norm. And for a long time growing up, I didn't know exactly what my dad did. I thought he just wrote checks for a living and like drove around the buildings and things like that. So
Yeah.
I comprehend what it all was until later in life. And my dad encouraged me to go into sales and get that background. And it was something that I kind of had an affinity for. And also, I went to university for communications, so not a whole lot you can do with that degree. So
Except communicate, which is actually a pretty
yeah,
important
yeah,
thing.
I'll get at that, have a degree in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was after probably 5, 6 years of just doing like sales. The Senators, I was working for the Ottawa Senators at the time, and they didn't make the playoffs. So I was like, okay, it's time to get my real estate license. Better, and then I worked with my family for several years and decided to leave the family business and join a boutique brokerage. And that's when I really fell in love with working with business owners and helping them purchase assets and what that process is really like in the long term. And it got to the point where I felt like I really was growing my own business. I had my own clients. I felt like I had my own relationships, my own brand in the community. And I had been telling my mentors and anyone that would listen for a long time that I wanted to build a team, that I felt passionate about, the idea of like coaching and mentoring, even if I have that imposter syndrome of like, what do I have to teach people after 10 years? And so I got to this point where I was considering my options, and Ashley and I always had those discussions. And so it was kind of, what would it look like for us to partner, for us to have like parallel businesses under the same brand and umbrella. And yeah, after some due diligence, decided that this was the path to go. And I got to benefit from a brand that had been around for almost 30 years, and a friend and an established business owner, and kind of be able to walk in to be able to align our businesses in parallel, but also still have our own niches. So
Yeah.
it, yeah, it was kind of a no-brainer. And 2 years, I think it'll be 2 years this July. I haven't looked back and regretted
Right.
one a bit.
Do you guys remember how you first met?
Yes.
Yes, we were thinking
The
about this today,
yeah,
actually.
yeah, the sort of dating story is kind of fun to tell, right? Yeah. So how did you guys first met?
Go
Just
ahead, Ash.
curious.
So it's funny because it's nothing fancy, but it's just one of those moments where, so every year there's the Auto Real Estate Forum, and we were both younger in our careers, and I luckily had a bunch of mentors that uh, are wonderful and I will be indebted to for the rest of my life. I'm indebted to one of them for introducing us, right? We're in a room of 400 people that we know loosely through reputation only, and we're kind of a little overwhelmed and trying to figure out how to make our mark in the room. And she just bowled through. Her name is Susan Rowe, by the way, if anyone's listening and knows her. Just bowled through the room and grabbed me and pulled me over and said to Sarah, like, you guys need to know each other. And she wasn't wrong, right? She understood that it's about finding people with uh, like morality and like business sense, and just knowing that you need to create that wrap around you in the industry because it's tough.
Mm.
And she just pushed us to make sure that we knew each other and that we were getting aligned, because I think she could see that we were probably both on the same path.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's
It,
worth mentioning, and I know Ashley specifically didn't mention this, but I'm going to. This
uh-oh.
was like 11 years ago.
Okay.
To this fall, it was 11 years ago, and we've come a long way, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that it was like a sea of males, and you could count on probably two hands how many females there were in that room at that time. And so it was one of those things where, yeah, Susan was like, you guys should know each other. Like you essentially can trauma bond. And
Mhm.
also roughly the same age, and people that it's essentially you're building your careers at the same time, and you're going to be coming up in the business together. You should have a relationship. And yeah, ever since then, we crossed paths a few more times organically, and then we've essentially been like inseparable ever since, and been supportive of each other's businesses, trying to find ways to strategize or introduce clients or help them kind of grow their respective business. So Ashley always said to me, perhaps over a cocktail, The door is always open. If there's a way that we can find a way to work together because we respected each other so much and saw in tandem like our quote unquote stars rising and our
Hmm.
business is like starting to kind of take off. Like if there's a way that we can do this, let's try without like impacting our relationship. And we figured out a way to do that where, essentially Ashley has the Paradigm brand and the Paradigm group of companies and I'm an offshoot of. I'm a separate individual company of under that
Right.
umbrella.
So I was actually going to ask if you could share a little bit more specifically about, you've both alluded to it, but very specifically what it is that you're offering and what is generally the structure of how things are put together for your
Yeah,
company.
I think what's really funny is that I get asked this by people that we work with every day. So I can convoluted that this may seem to the outside world, so more than happy to. So I think one thing that's really important to note is that obviously Paradigm was an existing company before I even came along, right? 15 years ago, it was already there. So it's always been a property management firm that specializes in uh, financial analysis, day-to-day property management, project management, essentially anything that the client needs on the asset side of things. And once upon a time, it did have a brokerage arm. And there was a point where the prior owner, again, Louise, had said, she didn't want to carry her broker license anymore. So she closed that arm. And for us, there's pros and cons to that, right? Because, you're limiting the services you can offer to your clients, but at the same time, you're open to the open market. So when I started to step into the VP role or take over the business, it was really important to me that we set up the arms as they became apparent to me that the clients needed it.
Mhm.
So we have this large overarching structure of what we offer to clients and that we're slowly building these arms up as we go. And Sarah's offering fit into that perfectly for us because Sarah could come in as the broker under her and create, I say under, that's not the right word, next to us and in her own setup where she's able to take the owner occupier, helping those folks establish their businesses in properties, and then we're able on a certain level, if it makes sense for those clients, because
Yeah.
nothing is predetermined. We are very
Right.
open about that, where we can come in and service it if they need it, and or just be a resource for them if they
Hmm.
hit a wall somewhere along the line, right? I think it's very important to put out there to the world that uh, there is no agreement between the two of us that there is, if you work with me, you have to work with Sarah. If you work with Sarah, you have to work with me. That's not how that works because we recognize that the industry is too fluid for that. And there's too many existing relationships. There's too many things going on in the world to prescribe to people what they need in their particular instance.
However,
Yeah,
because you do work together, there is this
exactly.
level of communication and continuity
Yeah.
that can be beneficial in the right circumstances, and so therefore the partnership.
It's about having the backstop, right? So
Yeah.
I'm Sarah's backstop if her client needs it. She's my backstop if her clients need it. And we all have our networks, we all lean on
Mhm.
them. But it's about offering that sort of comfort. And then we all need
Mhm.
comfort in this economy, my God.
Yeah.
Offering that comfort that there isn't a single thing in this industry or in our portion of the industry that isn't under one of the groups of companies, right? So it's all here and it's available to the clients as they need it, but not being forced on them.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. So given it's 2 years, do you have a broader vision for what the future might hold? Or is it really kind of going back to that theme of as opportunities arise, we're sort of pivoting to it? Do you have, or some combination of the two, like a broader vision, but the broader vision is open to interpretation or change?
I think it's both. Sorry, Sarah, I'll jump in again because I'm going to throw it
Mhm.
over to you. Like this, Sarah's what we did with Sarah is the perfect example, right? Like I think we both are so ingrained in the belief that it's about the network and the people around you and how are you building something from it. We do have a framework that we're working towards, and there are other arms that people we're going to launch over time, and
Mm-hmm.
they're based in the needs that have presented themselves over either the last 15 years in mine or Sarah's and over her career and what she's seen her owners and occupiers need. So we're structuring those and we're putting them together, but it's all because of the figuring out we figured out our relationship and how we have cohesion. So it's making sure that as we're growing those divisions and doing those things and building those teams, that it has the same structure and the same moral fields, and that we feel like it's
Mm-hmm.
a brainer again. There's no moves here. There's no ego moves here. This is not
Mm-hmm.
about growing an international firm. That's not a thing, right? All of it, we just want to be able to offer that same service. I mean, I don't want to overspeak, Sarah, but this is
Yeah,
not.
Sarah, what would you want to add into that?
I think the when Ashley and I we rebranded when we kind of merged together, if you will, for lack of a better term, to Paradigm Commercial from what was previously Paradigm Properties for just the management arm. And now Paradigm Commercial is kind of the umbrella company, if you will. And when we were going through that process and chatting about, okay, like what are we going out to the marketplace with? And the tagline, if you will, that we came up with was the future of real estate is full service. So we already were working together and we were already finding ways to support our clients. And I think the vision is just expanding on that. Like we already have lots of partners and relationships that we end up kind of quarterbacking with our clients on specific transactions or management mandates where we're bringing in all these people. So it's okay, well, how can we potentially maybe bring it in one house where we have the
Mm-hmm.
internal resources? Clients don't have to use our internal resources. We're always willing to collaborate with the outer market, and there's tons of great people out there. But how can we really make it so that, for example, there's been so many occasions where I've had clients that have purchased assets and they're more business owners. It's a smaller asset. Perhaps it doesn't really make sense to bring on the management, maybe more of an a la carte piece of the management, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And they call me in a panic. Sarah, my tenant has done a midnight move. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what to do and I'm screwed. Like I don't know this process. And I'm like, no problem, no problem. And then I call Ashley, and Ashley will drop everything. And regardless if she's involved in this client or not, or on this deal, or she's not getting compensated, but she's always willing to jump on a call or put an email together or a framework to say, okay, no problem. Relax, it's okay. This is what you need to do. And
Mm-hmm.
that value has been phenomenal for our clients. And that not just in those like emergency situations, in things like due diligence. Like a big part of my business and the value proposition that we bring is that, when we tie up a property, that due diligence process is so important. And Ashley, actually, that's a big service offering that she has for existing clients, but also for potential new clients is, yeah, I will do, all the reporting and all the requirements for the bank and then whatever the client specifically needs for their fit up. But those reports have limitations, right? The report may come back and say, oh, the life cycle of the roof is X. Well, that doesn't really give them a whole lot of intel, where there's been several occasions where we're at a point in a transaction where the deal's about to die because there's an HVAC replacement and it's a $250,000 significant project that it's way out of my scope. Ashley, in many cases, has been willing to just come to the site, talk to the client, bring in her contractors and relationships, and provide that added value where you wouldn't get that in a normal brokerage scenario, right? That's for me where this partnership has been invaluable. Yes, we've done business together and there's been income and things like that, but it's that extra thing that we can provide our clients because of that internal relationships and knowledge and resources that I have access to.
Yeah,
Very
that's
valuable.
great. Yeah. So I mean, and this is just just another example of how we don't have to think rigidly about a business model and that allow business models to adjust. And oftentimes businesses can be founded, but they can also be purchased. But just because of what you purchased was one thing doesn't mean that over time it has to remain the same. So, love this story. Now you've brought in all these pieces about what you do. But the other part here, I like to tell the entrepreneurial story, CEO, founder, business owner, but also bring professional resources to the table to support business owners. So I'm thinking, let's go down that path a little bit,
Yeah.
because in many cases, real estate is a crucial element, a crucial component of the business, whether it's an investment in the business, whether it's like what I mean is like the business has excess capital, so they move into real estate, or maybe the real estate itself is crucial to the actual operations of the business, whether so maybe we can go down some of those paths. Like let's talk about do you deal with I don't think I prepared you for this one, but do you deal with any manufacturing at all, or is it yes, you do. Okay. So let's look at that for just a second. Business owner is looking for a space where they're actually doing some type of production, because that's one type of business, but then a service business would be another, right? We can go down that path. Okay, so manufacturing. This probably starts with Sarah then. Would I be right? You're looking for a property. You're gonna go out, help get an idea of what the business owner is looking for and source that. I'm sort of putting words in your mouth, but you're looking for something under manufacturing. How can you help the business owner?
If I can back up for one second,
Yeah.
I think it's worth mentioning that Ashley and I deal with two different types of buyers, right?
Okay, perfect.
We've got the buyer that we call owner user, meaning that they're a business owner looking to occupy part or all of an asset. And there's a different financing model and a due diligence model and that. And then there is a individual, they could be private entity, they could be a business owner. And they're purchasing an asset solely as an investment play, so solely as a passive investment.
Okay.
So Ashley deals with both of those types of buyers. I primarily deal with the owner user. However, our brokerage as a whole, because we have now 4 licensed active agents, we do have brokers that specialize in dealing with investment buyers. But for the purposes of this conversation, I just had to
Perfect. Yep. Well, this is your area of expertise. I'm
yes. So back to the manufacturing question. So
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead first. Yeah.
this is, oh, sorry, Ash, if you
No,
wanted to
no,
jump.
go
Okay.
for it.
So this type of mandate, maybe not manufacturing specific, but the asset class of industrial is probably one of the hottest asset classes right now because the vacancy rate in the city is so low. It's always hovered in that 2 to 3% range in terms of like available lease space. And Ottawa's never really been like the manufacturing town, so we've never really had that much inventory. But it is probably the number one asset that owner user buyers are looking for because there's no inventory, the demand's so high, and it also works for all kinds of different types of businesses because industrial covers things from, like a heavy industrial user that needs dock loading and heavy power and it's a dirty space and perhaps they have outdoor storage and these types of things to more of like a flex industrial user. Maybe that's a gym, maybe that's a tile company that has a showroom and a little bit of warehouse. So the first thing when we are engaging these type of clients and we're doing our discovery calls and we're digging in is really understanding like obviously the basic operational needs. That is the number one thing. Like, what do you need to operate your business, but also to future-proof your business? That is the number one thing. And then the big thing is like, what is your long-term plan with the business? Do you want to potentially, grow a portfolio with real estate and the ability to be able to leverage your business to buy something? Is a great thing, but then also is the long-term plan to be able to pull out that equity and then build a portfolio, or to be able to position yourself for retirement, or for your kids to take over the business, or is it just really just an exit strategy? You see, like real estate is something I always want to get involved with. My business needs real estate. So there's so many different components to it, and it's very specific to the business owner and the individual. And we deal with, like I said, both of those types of clients, and many of them have gotten to the point where they may maybe have an established medical practice, as an example. And now I'm totally digressing. And that's been great. And they retire and they have cash. And then they come to someone like Ashley and they're like, I want to build a portfolio and diversify and invest in real estate. And I want you to basically be my eyes and ears and brain. And I just want the reports.
And I think that's where if we go back to the first thing that you had mentioned, like what is that? What's that first step? What's that build? Sarah mentioned like her discovery calls. It's the same sort of thing when I'm talking to investors.
Mhm.
I think there's a point that I really actually want to make, like if anyone is listening, is that there's a whole process that I think people don't realize they have to do before they make a choice like this, right? Investment and strategy is so important. And you hear these things where it's like, okay, I'm going to diversify my portfolio. And people believe that just by adding an asset to this, it's now a proper diversification of their portfolio and it's going to set them up for the future.
Mhm.
That may be true, but that may also not be true. So in a recent conversation with a client, I'm sitting back and they're entering a different phase of their life. And so the assessment that we had 5 years ago on what the plan was for the property when they took it over, because it was servicing their particular business, now that's changed. And so the conversation that we had was, okay, diversification for you means what? Does this property fuel the financial needs that you have on a day-to-day basis, or is it that that's funding the bonds that you need to buy in order to diversify yourself? Are you looking
Mhm.
at EFTs next year? What's your thought process on how
Mhm.
you're going to build your personal wealth? And then we determine whether or not that property with you, we don't determine that independently, but
Right.
we determine with you what does that property need to do? Because now that's going to affect how I do capital planning, how I do leasing planning, how I make sure that that property is playing into that matrix of what I hate that word, but that matrix of like making sure that everything is captured. And I think people overlook that because they don't do the hard work, which is
Mhm.
not financial and not business, of figuring out what they really need, as opposed to the ego work of figuring out what, from an outward perspective, they think they need to do.
Yeah. Well, and as you were describing that, what was coming to me in my field of wealth management, of course, I'm not an expert in real estate. And I know that there are plenty of business owners or investors out there that absolutely love real estate and don't understand the capital markets or other kinds of related areas. They're very comfortable in real estate. So, what I've seen sometimes is, well, let's step into this, but what I want to buy are REITs, real estate. And then I'm like, but that's not, on a very simplistic, that's not diversification because now you're investing in the public markets in real estate. I know it's what you're familiar with, but it's not necessarily, the right route to go, right? As
And,
just an
and what
example.
what worries me too, though, is that by following that path without doing that work, and again, I'm going to call it the internal work, because you can talk to every advisor, but until you've figured it out, like you're supposed to create advisors all around you to give you,
Hmm.
and then you have to figure it out for yourself. Without doing that work, we end up, I'll be honest with you, quite a lot of the work that Paradigm has taken on over the years is people who have listened to trends and not done research. And so we get called in to fix the problems, and we're kind of known for that, right? So come in and, hey, I've worked myself up against a wall, or we're about to go into a renewal and I don't think the property's positioned correctly, and my banker's telling me we're not going to make the mark this time around, so what can we, and I'm more than happy that I love solving problems for people, but at the same time it's like that can be avoided if you have the right people around you who are giving you the right advice and diving into the actual needs as opposed to figuring out the biggest bottom line, because sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes you do need to have a really bad financial year to make sure the next five meet the mark and get you to
Hmm.
where you need to be.
Hmm. Hmm. I feel like Sarah has something she wants to say.
Go, Sarah, go.
No, I mean, with regards to the investment stuff, it's one thing, and I mean, I think what a lot of people make the mistake of, and this is coming from a family that invests in real estate, right? So is that this is a long-term play. And I think that people make the mistake of going into purchasing commercial real estate is like, okay, what's my rate of return? What's my cap rate? What are the numbers? When how precarious those numbers are behind the scenes and how you talk to any different broker, any different underwriter at a bank, and they will look at a property and a rent roll completely differently. So I think that people, if they're going in just from as business owners aside, but just as like a pure investment play, is like you really have to go into this is it's going to be a journey and it's a labor of love from the perspective of like there will be years that you won't be able to take checks. There will be years that there may be a cash call. Things happen. The markets can change on a dime and trends come and go, as Ashley alluded to, and things happen where, in the long term, you're going to be so happy that you took that leap of faith and that you purchased that brick and mortar thing that you can drive by and say, like, I own that, I'm part of that, versus looking at a spreadsheet. But you can't go into this as like a 3 to 5 year exit strategy. And that the same thing goes for business owners as well. It's something that I have to remind people. Although we really do when we're advising business owners and purchasing something that they're going to occupy, like we really try to think of the short to medium term needs so that they're not in a spot where they're calling me in 3 years and being like, I've outgrown the space, now what? And they purchased it with a high leverage loan that now it's going to be very difficult for them to sell. We go into that mindset of like, okay, you're going to purchase it at this price. You're getting this type of financing. You're going to put this money in fit up. If push came to shove and your business completely changed, could we sell and could you break even? Like, could we be in a
Hmm.
spot where it's not going to destroy you and your business and your financial future if we needed to liquidate tomorrow? And unfortunately, we have to think from that perspective. And when I'm dealing with business owners, it is their everything. It's not the same as residential in that it's emotional and my family's going to grow up there and things like that. It's a whole other thing. Like it's emotional from the perspective of like, this is my family's future and potentially my grandkids' future. And so we have to go in with a perspective of like worst case scenario every single time. However, I have to regularly remind people that it's a long-term thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's the secondary reminder to that is if it's done right, you shouldn't have to use those
Escape clauses, right?
right. You shouldn't
Yeah.
have to get there. Let's plan for it, but then also understand if you listen to your accountant, if you listen to your banker, if you listen to your lawyer, and you dive in and you actually listen and allow the experts to do the work and not project yourself into it sometimes, like you can succeed, and it can be a generational wealth building exercise.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, well, fortunately, we have the opportunity to do that for people, but unfortunately, sometimes you see people come in a little late.
Right. So
And
proper due diligence, in other words, upfront,
yeah,
um,
and
not
that's
necessarily following a trend or feeling like I this is something I have to have because all the other people that I'm competing with, or whether it's competing for real or competing in our minds of
yeah,
ego, that have real estate, really taking the time up front to do the work to understand what do I need now, what do I need medium term, what do I need long term. And then in terms of Sarah, you're also involved in leasing, not just purchasing, is that right? So whether it's leasing or purchasing, and then part of that plan would also be how do we manage this on a going forward basis, which is a little bit more than when Ashley's team would come in. Maybe things start by, well, I'm going to occupy the building, I'm going to manage it myself. But then as things pivot and change, you need to bring in property managers or you're adding properties or what have you. Have I kind of
yeah,
now getting the way
Yes,
this would flow? Okay.
piece that together much better than we have.
and I think
Well,
that's the reason why we said at the top is that we don't we offer all the services, but you're never forced to do anything, because I think this is a natural progression that business owners have to take. And they have, and I say this with respect, I say to my brother all the time because he has to learn the hard way sometimes. I do, right? You have to walk through and learn. A lot of people will come back later on and say to me, I knew what I knew, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And I realized that this isn't what I wanted to do. I don't want to be taking calls about landscaping or
Mhm.
legal issues or anything else because I really enjoy my business.
Mhm.
So at a certain point, there comes a time where, yeah, there's always cost, right? There's always figuring that out. Sometimes it just does not make sense to have somebody come in and help. And I'm open about it. I say you can't. It's not that I'm here for you as a support, and call me if you ever need anything. But this isn't for you yet. Let's build your business more. Let's build the property more, and then we'll talk about services.
Right.
Um, but I think allowing people to go through that learning curve and understanding that do what you love and let other people do what they're good at and they love.
Yeah.
Don't try and force it
Team
at other
around you.
people. Yeah.
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 So, somebody listening here today, when we go live with our conversation, um, Sarah, let's start with you. Where can they find you? Share all the resources, and when is the best time to reach out? I think I know the answer, but
When isn't not a good time to reach out? No, I mean, our website is paradigmcommercial.ca. We're on LinkedIn as the same and Instagram is the same. So feel free to reach us through that. We are heavily involved in the community and heavily involved in our industry organizations like BOMA. And so the city of Ottawa is very important to us. The community building is very important to us, our industry and our colleagues and the business community as a whole. So you will find us at many different charity events and business focused events. We're very passionate about that. But yeah, you can reach out to either of us anytime to ask questions, just to mull over options, or just to talk market, what's going on.
And
And I, if you've noticed, I like to wrap up conversations with asking my guests for one piece of fun, frank advice. So I'm curious, what would be, Ashley, your one piece of fun, frank advice?
so I think mine, so we're going to go back to that thing where I told you in the beginning, I'm a passionate person. I think my big thing is don't take no. Like, I mean, I think that's just my overarching, never take no for an answer, and never look at something in the box that you see it in the first time you take a look, right? Like Sarah just mentioned, we're really involved in the community. One of my biggest passions in this industry is policy and governance and for lack of a better word, fighting the system, right? Like if there's something wrong, or if there's something that you don't understand, or if there's something that just doesn't make sense for your business or your path forward, my God, there's resources out there. And the louder you bark, the easier you're going to get your solutions, right? And I think what bothers me a little is there's so many opportunities in front, and people will take a look at people will have an idea of what they want to do either in their career or their business or anything else, and they think there's a hurdle and that's going to stop me, so I'm just not going to fight the good fight. And there's a reason you want to do it, and there's passion behind everything that everybody, that's why you started your business in the first place. So just keep pushing and keep looking out for resources and people around you who share that sort of vision, right? Like when I take a look at the relationship with Sarah, it's like we knew that we both just, although it didn't make sense, we'll turn down deals because that's not the right thing for that client. And be passionate about the things that you see, be passionate about the
Mhm.
things that you want out of your career, and just keep pushing. Like just keep pushing. I feel bad that people stop because they feel like there's no avenue. And if you
Right.
just have great people, they're going to help you figure it out, right?
Yeah.
I think
So
that's a good thing.
don't take no, and an obstacle is the opportunity. That's how I would reframe that. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's a good
Cool.
summary.
Cool. S Sarah, what would you add? One piece of fun fact.
I'll keep it short. Thanks. Um, I would say don't wait until you feel ready to do something. I think I'm a good example of that. In 10 years into the business, I had an incredible amount of imposter syndrome of opening up my own brokerage and going through that process. So just have great people around you, bet on yourself, do it, and you won't regret it.
And two perfect examples, really, of that. I'm glad you got over your imposter syndrome. Ashley, you are a recipient of the 40 under 40, right, here in Ottawa. And is
And I
this?
don't know if you've heard the news, but
Yeah, and I heard that more recently, Sarah, you're jumping into that group as well. So congratulations to both of you, really trailblazing as joint partnership. Younger women in an industry that is um, maybe not so forgiving outright, for those of your persuasion. So congratulations. I'm grateful to be able to have you both here and share this story and provide some really great insight into real estate for business owners, the self-made nation here who are listening. So thanks for being here.
Thank you, Colleen, for letting us ramble for an hour.
yeah.